And the reason I would take a transaction in cryptocurrency in 2021 at least is because of the debasing value of cash versus the accelerating appreciation of cryptocurrency through the remainder of the year. So as we as a country print more and more money, right now 40% of the monetary supply has been printed since the pandemic. Okay, so and that's historical, 40% ever.
Wow.
Okay. So think about what happened when, now the government can argue that there's no inflation and they're lying.
Welcome to the Disruptance Podcast. Here are your hosts, Eric Forney and Michael Bounds.
Every week on the show, Mike, we aim to disrupt the way entrepreneurs and real estate agents think about their business in order to make them more profitable and productive. And this week, I want to disrupt the way you think about the lies you've been told. We've been told a ton of lies in business and in life, and oftentimes we accept them to be truth and accept them to be common sense. And yet, I'm here today to tell you that most of them don't actually apply in today's business world, especially in today's real estate environment. And so let's switch things up a little bit this week and have Tyler be our moderator. And then we can bounce back and forth and see if you're still believing this lie or if we're in alignment on what some of these are.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
I'm extra curious because I grew up around realtors. I've been around realtors probably for 20 years. Right. And so I've seen everything from like the transition of briefcases being like the only thing with like all your offers and proposals and stuff in it to like a MacBook Air. So now I'm curious. One thing that I was thinking about this week was how real estate agents dress. And if you think that is applicable, did I say that right? Applicable?
Yep.
I look at Kate because she usually is one that like
she's grammar Nazi.
I'll start spinning out and then she's like, "No, here, this is the way you say it." But I was curious if real estate agents if you see more realtors nowadays dressing up for appointments or dressing like chic billionaire, nice t-shirt, nice jeans, nice shoes.
That Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
What do you got, Mike?
I think that is under or overrated. The second I started not caring about, well, for one, I think you have to be authentic. You have to be yourself. And so it's the second I stopped dressing to impress others, I actually tended to find more success.
Okay. Yeah, it matters. It matters what you wear. And this is from a guy who's wearing a sweatshirt and a pair of jeans right now, right? And who has adopted more of that in the last 12 months as a result of COVID. The 1 year anniversary of our 2 week shutdown being this week. Man, I know when I started, I wore a suit every single day, and if I could still fit in them, I probably would wear them every day too. But COVID also was hard on my wardrobe and my waistline. So I think it matters because it's about how you show up. And when you start as an agent, you're not the person who has the results or the influence to look like you're experienced and successful. So for me, dressing for success was dressing for the person that I wanted to become. And that was the mindset I put myself in every day.
So I guess it depends on where you are in your career.
Yeah. I don't have to wear one today.
But I wore a suit every day. So I get that. Yes. I agree with that too.
Okay. So you would say.
But Michael Jordan looked way better in a suit than and showed up more professional than those dressed unprofessionally.
So the reason why I say that is because the dress isn't really about me. It's about the way I'm perceived. So the way others perceive me. So if I come in dressed a certain way, that's going to alter the way I'm perceived by my client, if that makes any sense. So once you make it to a certain level, that becomes less important.
Yeah, because you're wearing confidence and experience.
Right.
That's what you dress yourself
I've got
in.
receipts.
Yeah, that's right.
At this point.
That's right.
So I don't want to give the message that everybody just, stop dressing crazy.
Yeah.
But I just do want you to also to know that I know as I matured in my career, I started realizing that, there's other things there's people that dress really well and are terrible real estate agents. And I know some people that don't dress as well and they're very good. So
one thing I think is interesting, and we'll go to the next slide, but there was a Robert Cialdini, who we've talked about a couple of times in his study of human behavior and psychology, had this study where they studied people who were crossing the street and who were like honking horns at other cars and how they treated people in a social environment where they knew no one. And they found that people were more willing to cross the street following someone wearing a nice suit or a uniform than they were willing to cross the street following someone who was wearing a t-shirt and jeans. And so they found that whether we subconsciously or consciously make that decision, it doesn't matter, but that people do actually get more influence from someone who's dressed either in a uniform or in like dress attire.
Interesting. I'd be curious how that plays out into the next possible lie that I've been told. And what about vehicles? So I feel like I've seen a wide range of Honda Civics, like decked out Honda Civics, like maybe $30K on the high end. But then I've also seen, $110,000 Porsche that's showing like $100,000 house. So what are your guys' thoughts? Is it necessary to have a nice vehicle as a real estate agent?
You want to talk to me?
We put the wrong two people for this. Go for it.
So I don't
give me a breakdown of the history of the cars that you've had since being a real estate agent.
You're a car guy too.
So I've been obnoxious and I've been humble. So I pulled up Believe in Vipers and Hellcats. I've actually did showings.
You had an Escalade too?
I have Escalade. But I drive a 2003 Granny Caddy. I do.
How does that stack up comfortability wise though to those other cars?
Comfortability?
Drive. You feel good in your Granny Caddy?
I mean, you know what? There's something when you get out of a Cadillac Escalade, there's something about the way you feel when you step out of that. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So from a confidence perspective, but to be honest with you, my numbers, now that I drive this my aunt gave it to me. It's look like no car payment. I drive 60,000 miles a year. So it's just stupid to do that to I have a 2015 Escalade and you put 60,000 miles a year.
Do your customers make comments either way? Did they make a comment when you drove a Viper, and do they comment now?
I for one, I didn't drive the Viper that often because I felt like, and those are gone. I don't have that stuff anymore. But I felt that was kind of obnoxious. I didn't like driving those. I don't know why I had that. It's only
you talked about it 2 weeks ago on the show. That was the poster that hung up in your garage or your house or something, right?
Yeah, I'm super weird about my image, so that's the reason why I never really drove that. But to me, yes, people. Okay, so people make assumptions about your success level depending on what you drive.
Yeah. So
when I pull up in a certain vehicle, there's people are responsive to you differently. I had another agent that I recruited that came on. I drove my Escalade, and he joined I want that.
Yeah.
So people are willing to be influenced. I would be lying if I told you that driving a nice car did not impact you, but it's not a prerequisite. I can push a lot of weight driving the Granny Caddy, I guess, if you will. So how about you?
Yeah, so for me, I guess I'm similar. Not that I drive a Granny Caddy today. However, I would. When I started, I rented a car. I've probably told this story off air, but I had someone call in about seeing a house for $1.2 million, and man, I'd never been in $1 million house before. Like I didn't know what somebody who owned $1 million house did, and I didn't know anything about that. And so, I scrapped a bachelor party that I was supposed to go to that weekend, and I stayed home and I researched every single house that had sold in that location for $1 million plus. For 2 days, man, I wrote write-ups and essays and bullet points and details about every single thing I could take in knowledge-wise about what $1 million house would look like in our market at the time, so that I could be prepared, because I'd been in the business for less than a year at the time. And then I rented a car and I wore a suit. And that was because I wanted to show up credibly. Mm-hmm. And so to me, it depends on who your audience is. In that case, it felt to me like I should be as prepared as possible to convert. Now, though interestingly, those people have still never bought a home 7 years later, and I check on it every year. And so I never got paid a commission. However, I got paid in all of the knowledge and the experience that I gained along the way by going through that preparation process. And so that part paid off. I've always driven nice cars that are expensive, but I let some other moron take the depreciation on. Mm-hmm. I bought the vehicle I have now and decided, and when I got it, I wanted to take all the badging off of it. So I had the dealer take everything off: letters, decals, stickers, emblems, and you'll still never hear me today talk about what I drive, because there is that perception from the customer. Eventually you have those that give you additional credibility because of what you drive. And then there are those that are like, well, you're overpaid. Yeah. And so I try to figure out a balance. So, I always tell people I drive either a white SUV or a red SUV. Yep. And that's what I go with, because for me, the brand is irrelevant. The brand is about my own insecurity if I have one. Right. If I attach the brand and the identity to it, then that's about my own insecurity. Whereas I drive the cars I drive because I like them. Right. And because someone else took all the loss and depreciation on it, and then I get the business tax write-off. Funny enough, so I guess as transparency, so we have 2 Range Rovers, and funny enough, man, we just bought a white Range Rover a couple months ago. My parents were looking for a new minivan. Their minivan cost more than we paid for our Range Rover. Right. And it's 550 horsepower Range Rover that somebody paid $130,000 for. Yeah. And then it lost the majority of its value in a short period of time. And so I've always been really hardcore about saving a ton of money on letting somebody else take the loss and then use the tax benefits of the heavy equipment that way. But I think they matter not as much as people want them to though.
Can I one exclamation point? I once hired a person that had an Audi, and he spent a lot of money on this Audi, and he did not sell anything. And I would caution against real estate agents or any kind of entrepreneur to go out and get debt because they feel that they have to have an image. And I told him the brand will take care of itself. Go out and make receipts, and the brand will take care of itself, and then you'll have that Audi. But he kind of put the cart before the horse. It's already too hard to be an entrepreneur without a lot of debt. Yep. And to go take in debt like that, it was kind of crazy. So that's what I want to caution.
Dude, I shopped for 10 months before I shopped for a year and a half. I had a E-Class Mercedes before this, and I could afford it. And it was because I bought it used. Right. I mean, I could afford it. It would cost. I know that Lauren's Kia payment was more than my Mercedes payment.
I remember it. It wasn't crazy.
And yet I shopped for a year and a half because it was going to be $100 a month more than what I was than the Cadillac I was driving before that. Okay. And then this was $135 a month more than my Mercedes, and it took me 10 months to finally be willing to actually pull the trigger on it. Right. Which was dumb. but I had to
Right.
I had to not take on debt before I had the receipts to take on the debt. And I had to mentally get there.
Right.
Because it's a way better business decision to have the ability to deploy capital into your business than it is into a car.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. What'd you end up doing with that Mercedes?
That's a great. Oh, you know what? I sold it actually to one of the agents on the team. Yeah, we had an agent whose car was pretty beat up, and he was having a lot of success, and so I think his car maybe quit on him or something, and so I had him. He drove it, and then he bought it from me.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's the way to do it.
yep.
I guess all this money talk's got me wondering about cash offers nowadays. If you've had half of a conversation with a real estate agent in the last month or so, you've probably heard them talk about how hard it is to get an accepted offer, including cash offers that are over appraised value and all this other stuff. And if you're a real estate agent listening to this, I'm sure you're cringing right now thinking of this, but I wanted to get your guys' takes on the value of a cash offer and if it's totally necessary, or if that's just something cash is king. Is that a lie?
Yes, that's absolutely a lie. Here's why it's a lie: is if I am more willing to walk away from a transaction if I have the ability to pay cash for it than if I might lose a large portion of my liquid savings. And so what I mean by that is if I'm buying a house, and just for simple math and so that it works nationally, 339,000 is the median household, the median home price right now as a country. Okay. So let's go a little bit above that to make the math easier. So let's go 500K. If I could pay cash for a $500,000 house, and the most common earnest money is somewhere between 1% to 2%. Let's say it's $5,000. I'm going to put down $5,000 to secure my offer on a $500,000 house.
Right.
If I have $500K in cash, walking away from $5,000 and losing that money doesn't hurt me. However, if I have 10% to put down or 5% to put down on that $500,000 house, I'm going to have a really hard time walking away from 25% of my actual liquidity savings. That's going to hurt. I'm going to think really hard about whether or not I want to move forward and or move out of the contract. And so the thing that people don't ever think about is the fact that when you have the money to pay cash for the house, you also have the money to lose it and walk away from it. So I'm going to make the argument that says that if you have a cash offer, you should pony up at least 10% in order to convince me that you're actually willing to do whatever it takes to move forward. Otherwise, I like the ability, oftentimes, of somebody who's got conventional financing better than someone who has a cash offer, because most people with cash are willing to walk away from it. We had a buyer. I had a listing that buyer $900,000 deal, $900,000 cash offer, and they were willing to walk away from it. That was because what they stood to lose at 8, 9, 10,000 was irrelevant in that scheme.
Okay, I'm going to say depends. I'm going to say I just had this happen with a hedge fund. I had a listing, was on the market. I got a cash offer from a hedge fund within over asking, and within 2 days they were like, nope, we don't want to. They literally just yanked out. And so they took all my inertia, all my momentum. And so from that perspective, from a listing agent perspective, I think you're right. I think that you can be strategic, and cash isn't necessarily king. But when I'm representing a buyer,
oh yeah, of course, yeah. I want a cash buyer too. Yeah.
If I'm representing a buyer and I want to go out and show homes, I'm going to take a buyer that has cash. It's underrated over somebody who's FHA or conventional all day, because it's just going to be easier to get them done. But if I'm on the receiving end, I want to look at the totality, all the offers. I'm going to look at cash. Cash is going to be really, a good indicator. But So that's my answer to that.
Here's the thing with the cash offer. So I wrote the world's greatest offer on this house. And I say that only because it was textbook, in my opinion, it was textbook on everything that you should do in order to get your offer accepted. Now, I probably shouldn't have done this, but I did. In retrospect, this was an expensive decision. However, when I bought the house, there were multiple offers on it. And what I did was I put down a substantial earnest money and made it non-refundable.
Right.
Because what I wanted to convey to the seller is the number one thing, in my opinion, that a seller wants is they want their money. And then they want it in the least amount of time or in the ideal time frame for that person. But most importantly, they want to minimize any potential risk. And so for me, the largest amount of down payment with the least amount of risk wins, because it's the most guaranteed deal. I can right now in today's market, if I offer, we sold something for $116,000 over list price last week. It's easy for someone to write $100,000 plus offer over asking price.
The question is,
that's right. The question is will you fulfill your commitment or not? Yeah. Because if not, it's just paper. It's just paper. Yeah. And so I think you have to think about how do you really deliver a guarantee to the seller if you're a cash offer or if you're getting a loan. And so I got a loan and beat out cash offers because I put 20% of it non-refundable. Right. My earnest money is 20% non-refundable. Here you go. Here's my down payment.
I think agents are lazy. They see cash and they don't want to do the math.
Yeah.
They just say, oh, this is a cash offer. Take the cash offer.
And it feels like lower risk.
Yeah. And when in all reality, it may not necessarily be the case. Okay. Next question. Sorry.
All right. This will
cash is trash.
Cash is trash. So this will be my, this will be the last one for this episode. I've curious.
Oh, we have more?
About
like so many more.
Yeah, we got a lot. I have a lot more to ask you about. I've been lied to for so long. What about? I wanted to ask. If you're not sure, but since we're talking about cash, I'd love to know: is buying houses with cryptocurrency overrated or underrated in today's climate?
Wow. So buying a house with cryptocurrency, overrated or underrated? Mike, you want to kick this one off?
You really going to have me talking cryptocurrency on here?
So that's not your thing,
That's not my jam, man. I'm gonna stay in my lane.
All right. So the second, other than my family, the second love in my life, cryptocurrency. So underrated, overrated. If I'm a seller, I would take that deal. I guess it depends on what I'm being, what cryptocurrency I'm being offered and at what time, but I would take that deal. And the reason I would take a transaction in cryptocurrency in 2021 at least is because of the debasing value of cash versus the accelerating appreciation of cryptocurrency through the remainder of the year. So as we as a country print more and more money, right now 40% of the monetary supply has been printed since the pandemic. Okay, so and that's historical, 40% ever.
Wow.
Okay. So think about what happened when, now the government can argue that there's no inflation and they're lying. So add that to another lie you're being told.
Feels like it to me.
Right?
I just went to Subway, it was $25 for 2 sandwiches.
That's right. So inflation may not exist, but the cost of consumables drastically exists, right? So realize that the government chooses.
Subway, $25.
Jeez, dude, that's crazy. Realize that the government chooses what they include in their inflation basket to calculate that. So the cost of TVs has gone down from the first flat screen TV I bought. Right. Okay, great. However, the cost of the $5 foot long is no longer $5 as it sounds like. So, so innovation and technology caused the cost of some goods to go down. However, the monetary printing makes the dollar worth less and therefore drives the price of consumer goods. And every house I own has gone up at least 25% in the last 2 years. Right. And so thankfully, that's a good thing for those that own assets. The challenge is those that do not own assets are not getting ahead.
Yeah.
And so the reason why I would be willing to say, and why I'm 100% bought in on cash is trash, is because of the debasing of the monetary system. Right now, it's estimated that cash is losing its value to the tune of 15% a year. So your dollar is actually getting about 80 to 85% equivalent of where it was pre-pandemic.
I believe it.
And you know what? Your wages aren't going up though by that equivalent amount either, which is why we see this massive wealth divide continuing to grow. And so where cryptocurrency comes in to solve that problem, when we look at the initial Satoshi Nakamoto white paper of why cryptocurrencies were even founded, it was because of the 2008 global financial crisis, because banks, the intermediary third party, were manipulating the monetary system in order to do quantitative easing, printing. Right. You could do, just verbal pre-approvals. Yep. Well, the technology around cryptocurrency doesn't allow for the manipulation of the system.
Right.
And so the best returning asset for the last 13 years is cryptocurrency, period. Not even close. 212% annualized growth rate for the last 12 years. So if you're asking me, would I rather have cash that's losing its value to the tune of 15% right now annually, or a 212% appreciating asset? It's a very clear non-decision that I'll take that in a reputable cryptocurrency all day long, every day.
What he said.
That's what I feel like we just got, like, he's been it's been like percolating in his head. He just needs like an outlet to just let all that
That's
out.
right, dude. That's right.
He said something about some white papers, and whose white papers are those?
Man, it's crazy if you go down the rabbit hole where you start to really question everything you thought about money before. And what you have to do though is you have to silence the noise of the mainstream media and the masses, because it is such a complex topic. When you think about it, when you think from the perspective of what you know as an American, you're thinking incredibly limited. And we only know money in the US dollar equivalent. However, when you think about it, 40% of the global population is unbanked. And we're a pretty global society. Right. Africa, as a majority, has no access to a reliable banking system. And the technology behind cryptocurrency is able to solve a lot of that problem because it's peer-to-peer lending,
right,
where you can trust that when I tell you I have $2 equivalent, that I haven't also given my $2 to Tyler and to Kate.
Right.
I only have $2. When we think about the global financial crisis of 08 and 09, people were lending money that didn't have money because there's a intermediary third party who has an incentive to get paid to manipulate the validity of our transaction. Software doesn't have a decentralized software doesn't have the ability to be corruptible like that. So if I tell you that I have the money for a down payment, the system knows if I have the money for a down payment or not.
Yeah.
The mortgage process, while significantly improved in the last 10 years, still is corruptible comparatively.